And in this video, I'm going to show you a widget that is very simple but very important to me. I use this widget pretty much every day, all day. It's open in my browser here. If you see it, I have a pinned tab there. It is called the mini task list. It's basically a to-do list. Everyone knows what a to-do list does. It keeps track of all the little tasks and action items that you need to remember to do. It's not really for managing big projects. It's for the details that if you don't remember to do them, they're going to slip through the cracks and then annoy you because you didn't get the thing you were supposed to do done. And just as an example of that, my work offers Wi-Fi reimbursement. And because we're all working from home during COVID, so I need to remember to submit the receipts to my work, and then I can get reimbursed for that expense. It is a pretty simple tool. I can create a new task, new life task, and that goes into the list here. I can increase the priority of that. I can drill down to see more information about it. More information here. Save that. And then I can, this blue button will archive it, so it'll put it in a backlog. This button will mark it as complete, but I'm actually just going to go ahead and delete it. Boom. That's the idea. Again, pretty simple, but as you can imagine, very important to keep all of these tasks managed and in a list. I have hard-coded in my widget, my to-do list, 3 categories. There's a life category, there's a work category, and CRM is basically side project category. So if I click on the CRM, a lot of these are actually about widgets, since that's the side project I'm working on currently. For example, one is how to make sure I avoid JavaScript caching errors in the widget code. And then in my life list, again, the Wi-Fi reimbursement. In the work list is actually shorter because I'm constantly, I spend a lot of time at work, so I go through a lot of these work items, so they don't tend to build up. Whereas the life list tends to build up into the weekends until I can finish a lot of those chores. Now, one thing that's interesting about this widget is that it integrates with some of the other widgets. So I'm going to go into the chore log, and these are the chores that I'm supposed to remember to do. And I can click this button here that will create a mini task item. So now I go over here and I refresh and I see this chore here, clean monitor screen, in my mini task list. Another example is the Chinese study. So when I'm studying Chinese, I often want to take a note, right? So I create a note here. Here is a note for the healthy family character. Right, so that creates a task item right here. So I've got these nice integrations between the to-do list widget and my other widgets. Now the reason I'm mentioning those to you is that this widget has a lot of features that I've built for myself. This is a do-it-yourself piece of software that I have customized to my own interests, my own productivity habits, my own workflows. If you spend a lot of time studying productivity apps, you know that there's millions of to-do list apps out there on the internet. If you go into the App Store or you search on Google, you'll just find dozens and dozens of these things. They've all got different feature sets because everyone has their own theory of productivity and how to manage productivity. So all of these to-do list apps have tons of features, and in fact, probably most of those features you don't actually want. They were built for somebody else in mind. They were developed according to a certain theory of productivity and a certain theory of workflow that you may or may not utilize. So a lot of those features are just going to get in your way. I can mention the infamous project management software named Jira, if that rings a bell to any of you. That Jira has tons and tons of features, and it's immensely complicated and immensely difficult to use. So this strategy of to-do list tracking works much better. It's much more efficient for me. Now let's dig into the code just a little bit. Here is the table. It is exactly one table. This widget has one table, and you can see all of the fields here. So there's a task type, there's a description, there's some extra info, a start date, an end date, a priority, and a flag that says if it's in the archive or not. So if I create a new database item test, and then I do select star from mini task list, order by ID desk 5. That new record has shown up as the newest item in this table, this one table. And I'll just briefly jump into the code. Here is the code. You can find this on the GitHub. It's quite simple. It is, let me scroll down here to the section where it displays the active table, right? This function does redisplay active table. This is the table header. So you can see here, type, short desk, start, age are the names of these columns. And you're just creating a big HTML string and putting it into an active table span. Okay, so you compose this big string, table string, and then call populate span data, which goes down here. It has a, let's see, oops, I missed it. Active table is here, so it just puts that big HTML string into this div. And this function does the display of the edit item, so that is if you go into the detail here, that displays all of this data. And this widget is just about a couple hundred lines, so it's a fairly large volume of code, but it's all very simple. There's nothing complicated about it. And the final thought I want to leave you with is probably in your mind you have this concept that creating software is hard, creating software is difficult, and that's why you don't create software for yourself very often. Most people don't create software for themselves because they think it's too much work. But what I want to suggest to you is that it's actually not that much work. And for example, let's say you create a custom to-do list for yourself, and that saves you 5 minutes per week because it's customized to your work habits. It saves you 5 minutes per week. that means it saves you about 4 hours per year. And that in turn means that you're probably going to pay off your investment in time in just 1 year. A widget does not take more than 4 hours to develop, assuming you know basic JavaScript and HTML. If you don't know JavaScript and HTML, you're going to have to learn those a little bit. But if you already know those technologies, which a lot of people do, it's not going to take you very long to create a widget and get a good ROI in terms of your time. Thanks a lot for listening. I hope I can convince you to use your own customized productivity widgets like this one. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions.